Glenn is an Aboriginal man. He has taken sick leave from work due to stress and has seen Liz once before. His dad died 6 months ago in quite tragic circumstances. He'd had a stroke in the shopping mall and lay on the ground for a couple of hours before anyone realised what had happened. Glenn thinks that if his dad had been a white person, someone would have offered assistance sooner.
Hi Glenn, would you like to come through? How's your week been?
It hasn't been particularly good.
So I remember you saying it was coming up for 6 months since your dad died.
Yeah. I still get really angry when I think about it.
It's such a big loss to lose your dad, and under those circumstances as well.
The fact that, you know, no one stopped to check. He could have still been alive, you know.
Yeah.
And it just makes me fucking angry. We did everything together. I wouldn't be here where I am now if it wasn't for him.
Yeah. So you guys were close?
We were close.
Yeah. You came a couple of weeks ago, you were a bit worried about your drinking and just generally how you were coping. How's it been the last week?
I've been drinking it more and more. It's, you know, it's getting close to that 6 months. The only way I can seem to deal with it is just to drink.
Yeah.
Otherwise I just sit there with this ball of anger and wanting to lash out. And I can't do that.
And you drinking much at home or mostly when you go out?
Drink all the time.
Yeah.
Home.
Every day?
I never used to do that before. Normally I'd only drink on the Friday or Saturday night if I went out with my mates.
Still catching up with your mates?
Yeah, yes, still catch up with them, and I think I'm even drinking more these days when I go out with them.
Glenn was pacing in the waiting room and appeared agitated. He is casually but neatly dressed. He looks down for most of the interview and is fidgeting with his hands.
Can you talk to them about how you're feeling or?
Nah, you can't talk to blokes about this kind of stuff.
فيجزنج هاند يعني بفرك في ايديه او بالعربية بقى بيسموها التململ.
What about your girlfriend? How's that going?
Oh, that's not great. A lot of my anger and frustration, I don't mean to. I take it out on her. She says something and I snap back for no reason. I'm scared of losing her, but I don't know what to do about it. I can't seem to stop doing what I'm doing. I can't afford to lose her after losing my dad.
Yeah.
And the job, my dad was so proud of me when I got a job with the government. I can't afford to risk losing that either. I suppose that's why I initially started coming here.
In terms of how you're feeling, you feel like it's getting worse or evening out, or this week's been a hard week?
This one's been hard.
Yeah.
This one's been particularly hard.
Yeah.
Mood and affect describes how a client feels, mood, and how he or she presents to the worker, affect. Glenn says he is angry and he appears flat and depressed.
And are you sleeping okay?
No. No.
And that's just a recent thing, not sleeping well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And does the alcohol help you get to sleep and then you wake up?
It does.
Yeah.
I generally average a 6-pack a night. Just to help me sleep.
Yeah, okay.
And then on the weekends with the mates, it's like that's a different ballgame even altogether.
It might be worthwhile talking to the GP about his sleeping. We can do some work on cutting down the drinking, but it might be good to fill the GP in on what's happening as well. It's possible they might have some medication that might help with the sleep, but it will be important not to mix it with too much alcohol. But when you say that, it's particularly bad, you're feeling particularly low, are you ever feeling so low that you feel that you might hurt yourself or even take your own life?
Suicide risk assessment. Liz asked Glenn, has he thought about taking his own life? When assessing risk of suicide, it is important to use clear, concise language.
No. I feel angry and want to lash out at people, but there's, it's like, who do you lash out at? I punch the wall occasionally, but no, taking mine.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, that's good to hear. I can get a sense of how the anger must be around the loss and that there is no one to direct it at.
That's what makes it hard. Who do I direct my anger at? It's like, society's fucking screwed. But it's society in general. There's not a face, not even a government department that I can direct it at. Huh?
How are you kind of getting through those feelings?
I'm struggling with them at the moment. I know it's like I'm contemplating going back to the old boxing gym.
Okay.
I can't think of any other way at the moment. Could work out in the old bag. It's what I used to do in the past.
Yeah, so get rid of some of those feelings of being so angry.
Mm.
And you said helping out in the gym, so helping other people.
Yeah, I mean, just trying. See, Dad was always really, really good at helping others in the community. So I suppose it's trying to continue on with his work.
Yeah, so it's something that you valued about him that gives you a sense of carrying him forward in some way, even though he's not here.
Mm.
The gym idea sounds really great. Would you like to do a bit of work on cutting your alcohol use down a bit?
Yeah, that's. I know I'm drinking way too much.
Glenn's insight and judgment are intact. He was able to make the link between his increased alcohol intake and his anger and grief over his father's death.
I know it helps me sleep, but it doesn't help with my anger.
Does it make it worse?
It can make it worse. And that's what I'm worried about. That's one of my main worries, is that if I continue to drink more and more like I am, that I'll get into a situation which I can't get out of.
Yeah, and that is a good insight because, people lose their inhibitions when they're intoxicated, and when you're having strong emotions, it's important to keep a lid on them in some way.
So for me, just to start looking at any sort of reduction.
What I'd like to do is give you a drink diary to take home, and just keep in your mind, that you are wanting to cut down, and if you can record what you're feeling just before you have a drink and how much you drink. And then if you bring it back next week, we'll have a look at it together and talk about how you went with it.
Grief and loss. Many clients who attend AOD counselling are experiencing grief and loss. Glenn is grieving the loss of his father, and his grief is made more complex by the circumstances of his father's death. Liz will continue to see Glenn for counselling.
You've got a lot going on. You've got the death of your dad. It sounds like your relationship's suffering a bit from, the grief that you're experiencing and the increase in your drinking.
Yeah, I really can't afford to risk losing her, and it's like Dad's not there. And
yeah. So you want to keep your relationship, you want to keep your job, and you want to keep the things going that your dad was so proud of you for. Yeah. And it sounds to me like you've got a plan. So should we catch up next week?
Yes, please.
Okay, great.
كده خلصنا اللي احنا عايزين نقوله. مم. كان الدكتور جاب عرض علينا في الراوند، كانت ايه يا ربي، كانت حاجة كرتونية تقريبا، وكانت حالة كان عندها كانت ايوفوريك كلام من ده، حتى مش فاكرها والله، حد كان فاكرهم بقى يبقى بعتهم الادمن او عشان ايه الناس تبقى عندها خلفية يعني. انا عارف ان الفيديو طويل، بس انا كده حبيت اجمع الفيديوهات دي عشان ايه فيما بعد لو عاوز ارجع لهم تاني ما عملتش اشوف في وسط الفيديوهات بقى محفوظات في حتة واحدة يعني. أخيرا بقى كنا عايزين إيه اكنولجمنت أو شكر يعني الدكتور أيمن على تعبه معانا في قسم النفسية يعني بصفة خاصة. آه، كان كويس معانا جدا يعني، وكان بيستقبل جميع أنواع الأسئلة غير مسافة من حد يعني. كده خلصنا. لو حد استفاد من أي حاجة لا ينسانا من صالح دعائه. ولو في حاجة غلط في اللي أنا قلته وارد يكون في حاجة غلط، لأن الدنيا زنقة يعني، والامتحان مش أحسن حاجة النهاردة، فممكن يكون في مش مركز كتبت حاجة غلط. فلو في حاجة غلط ممكن حد يبعت الأدمن عشان محدش يصلح الناس يعني لو في حاجة غلط في اللي أنا قلته، عشان لو نسمع ما يحلش غلط في الامتحان. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم يا شباب.